Hey everyone, and a massive welcome to all you Focus learners joining us for this explainer. Look, if you're gearing up to tackle the Designing Cisco Wireless Networks version 1.2 exam, you are literally exactly where you need to be. I absolutely love breaking down these complex certifications because, well, let's face it, half the battle of passing a major tech exam is just figuring out what Cisco is actually asking of you, right? So today we're going to completely unpack the official 300-110 WLSD blueprint. We're turning that dense, heavy syllabus into a crystal clear, actionable roadmap for your success. Now, just to ground our session, I want to make it super clear that every single piece of information, every strategy we discuss today is pulled straight from the official Cisco syllabus for the WLSD 300-110 exam. This is a core part of the CCNP Wireless certification track, so by sticking strictly to Cisco's own published guidelines, we're giving you the ultimate insider's advantage. There's no guesswork here, just exactly what you need to know. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the 90-minute WSD challenge, then the high-level exam blueprint. After that, we'll break down domains 1 and 2, tackle domains 3 and 4, and finally, wrap it all up with your blueprint study strategy. All right, starting off with part 1, the 90-minute WLSD challenge. Let's talk about the stakes. 90. That is the exact number of minutes Cisco gives you to prove your expertise. 90 minutes. When you just isolate that number, it really adds a sense of urgency, doesn't it? It means you don't just need to know the material, you've got to know it fast. Your recall of wireless design principles, mobility groups, high availability protocols, it basically needs to be instantaneous, so you can comfortably navigate that testing window. This strict time limit, that needs to be the driving force behind your whole exam preparation strategy. Let's move to part 2 and see how this builds out, the high-level exam blueprint and domain weights. This breakdown brilliantly illustrates exactly where your points are actually going to come from. We've got wired and wireless infrastructure holding the biggest chunk at 30%. Then, we have a perfectly balanced tie for second place, wireless site survey at 25% and mobility also at 25%. And finally, WLAN high availability rounds out the whole thing at 20%. Honestly, this is the perfect mental model. Think about it. If you're spending half of your study time on high availability, which is only a fifth of the exam, your strategy is totally misaligned. This data tells you exactly how to budget your precious time. Moving right along to Section 3, Domains 1 and 2, covering site survey and infrastructure. So, Domain 1.0 is wireless site survey, holding a hefty 25% of your score. And a massive part of this is knowing your tools. Cisco explicitly calls out Ekahau, Hamina, Channelizer, and Spectrum analyzers. You absolutely must know how to use these planning tools to evaluate your key network metrics. If you aren't completely comfortable with, say, what a Spectrum analyzer shows you versus what a predictive tool like Ekahau or Hamina spits out, you are essentially leaving points on the table. But you know, tools alone just aren't enough. You've got to master the actual methodology. You need to know exactly when and how to perform the different survey types, Layer 1, pre-deployment, post-deployment, and predictive. Plus, Cisco fully expects you to collect design requirements and evaluate constraints across all of these scenarios. You have to think about things like client density, real-time applications, and how material attenuation fundamentally messes with your wireless design. You've got to be able to look at a deployment type, whether that's data, voice, video, or location tracking, and instantly know which survey approach to take. Now, what's really interesting about Domain 2.0, wired and wireless infrastructure, is how it basically forces you to split your brain between the physical and the logical. And remember, this is worth a massive 30%. On the physical side, you have to determine tangible, real-world requirements. We're talking AP power, cabling types, switch port capacity, even physical mounting and grounding. But then, you have to instantly pivot to the logical infrastructure. That means wrapping your head around WLC and AP licensing requirements, which, by the way, change entirely depending on the specific architecture you're deploying. And Domain 2 certainly doesn't stop at just the basics. Because it carries that huge 30% weight, it is jam-packed with dense key concepts. You need to understand radio management design, so traditional RRM, but also Cisco's AI-enhanced RRM. You're going to be tested on RxSoC and very specific design requirements for everything from voice to location services using Cisco Spaces. And to top it off, you have to know how to design high-density networks and wireless mesh bridging, right down to the specific modes of operation. It's a really heavy domain, so definitely give it the respect it deserves in your study schedule. All right, let's transition into Section 4, Domains 3 and 4, which focus on mobility and high availability. Domain 3 is all about mobility, and it sits at a very solid 25%. To really conquer this chunk, you must deeply understand how to design mobility groups based on specific mobility roles. You've got to know the mechanics of optimizing client roaming. And it's not just high-level theory. You actually have to validate mobility tunneling for both your data paths and your control paths. Crucially, you need to be able to describe and implement site tags effectively. This whole domain is really focused on fluid, uninterrupted movement across your wireless landscape. Then, moving over to Domain 4, we've got WLAN high availability, which makes up the final 20% of your exam. The trick here is splitting what can be a really overwhelming topic into two nice, digestible categories. First, you have controller high availability, so we're talking lag, SSO, and priority or anchor redundancy. Second, you've got access point high availability, meaning prioritization, fallback strategies, and leveraging embedded wireless controllers. Master both sides of that coin, and you've just locked down a fifth of your exam. Which brings us to our fifth and final section, your blueprint study strategy. Let's build a data-driven attack plan. So the absolutely crucial point here is how do we actually take all of this raw syllabus data, all these percentages and domains, and synthesize them into a winning, time-efficient study strategy? Well, here is your step-by-step attack plan. Step 1. Start exactly where Cisco recommends. Take the Designing Cisco Enterprise Wireless Networks course. The syllabus literally states this as the primary preparation vehicle. Step 2. Target the core. Domain 2, wired and wireless infrastructure, is your largest single section at 30%. Build your physical and logical foundation there first. Step 3. Master the middle. Domains 1 and 3, site survey and mobility, combine to make up a whopping 50% of the test. Once your infrastructure knowledge is rock solid, dedicate half of your total study time to mastering those survey tools and roaming optimizations. I want to leave you with a question to really ponder as you open your books tonight. Are you actually prioritizing your 90 minutes of exam prep to match the blueprint's heaviest weights? Honestly, if your study log doesn't reflect the heavyweights we just analyzed, it is time to recalibrate. You've got the official roadmap now. Use this data, structure your approach, and go conquer those 90 minutes. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy studying.